Welcome to the Artist Academy podcast, a place where we focus on the business side of art to help you attract more customers, to increase your profits, to ultimately live a life of creativity and financial freedom. This week, we have a special interview with Lennon. I was so excited to learn that he is just up the road from me, a few hours anyway, in Kansas City. So we're both in like the Kansas, Missouri area, which I was really surprised about because seeing his content online, I just loved it. I had a student recommended him to me and said that they saw him speak at an event that they went to and that he was really inspiring. And I love having coaches on here. So he coaches other artists. He's actually a musician himself, but I mean, the arts of the arts. It's all the same, like tell your story, be confident kind of a thing. And I love having other coaches on here because, just to be real, sometimes having artists who are used to just being in their studio and not speaking in the camera and just not used to motivating other people, they can still have an amazing story and it can be very relatable. But interviewing other podcasters and other coaches, they just have a certain, they have a level of experience with them because they've talked to so many other people about it. They know what to say. They get right to the point and they speak well. And I just really enjoyed having Lennon on here. And I think you're going to too. So let me know what you think of this week's episode with Lennon Bone.
My name is Lennon and I run a company called Stop the Starving Artist. And the idea is that we help artists that are making sales in real life make those sales online. I'm a big believer in the fact that if you want someone to connect deeper with your art, they also need to connect with you as the artist in some way or some sort of deeper story. So, I'm a big believer that you don't make art. You are the art. So that means it's an extension of you. Whatever you create, unless it's very much a specific, you're hired to do this thing and this is my vision and I want you to create it. It's coming from a place of your own story, your own ideals, your own values. And the faster we can get somebody to connect to those values and stories and ideals, the faster they'll connect to your art and the more likely they are to buy.
Perfect. Yeah, I totally agree. What's some way, since we're talking about this subject, what's some way that an artist could share their story in their art? That's not just like, hey, look at my art, it's pretty. What's the best way, I think, online for you to show that?
Well, I often get asked this question and I'm a big proponent of people want the how before they uncover the why. So what I mean by that is everybody wants the quick, give me a tip on what my content should look like, but they don't really know what they're trying to say in the first place. And so what I always work with artists on is figuring out what it is that they're actually trying to say as artists, right? And sometimes they're like, well, I don't want to say anything. I just make stuff because I like to make it. Right. Well, that's cool. But even within that, there's a reason, maybe you haven't uncovered it yet, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And so what I would ask someone is to look inside and say, what do I want my art to give someone? And if you're like, well, I don't know because it just gives me something, great, totally fine. The next question would be, if you didn't have art, you had to strip it away, you weren't an artist, what would you want to do to change your little corner of the world? And this is a powerful question because you're kind of, again, looking inside and saying, what am I really trying to achieve here? And when we strip the art away, we're only doing it briefly. And the reason we do it is because so many of our educational systems, of all these things, teach artists to talk about art in a very artsy way. And I want you to talk about it as a human being, because the more we can just get humans to connect to humans, the better anyway. So just ask yourself that question. What is it that you want to do to change your corner of the world? What are you passionate about? What pisses you off? What gets you excited? Where do you see these things that light you up or just get you revved up? And then when you start there, that becomes the stuff that you can talk about.
Okay, yeah. So I think the first thing that I think of and what other people think of too, and when they think the things that piss me off, sometimes it's really hard to share that. It's if I'm too loud, it's gonna make people mad. And there's even having like a podcast platform, there's still lots of things that I like want to say, but sometimes don't. But so what would you say to the artists who they want to come up and say what they want, but I guess they don't want to repel everybody, or they don't want to make people mad. They don't want to have a bunch of people coming at them in the comment section on TikTok and be like, who are you to say that? Or, well, what are you doing? You're not perfect, or like all the things.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because you said it there at the end, right? Which is, what are you doing? You're not perfect. So there's a underlying fear here that people will judge you, right?
Yeah.
I'm just here to remind you that you're being judged no matter what. Like, so we don't get to escape that. I wish we did,
Dang it.
but we are being judged because that's what people do, and the internet feels scary. But 9 times out of 10, there's nothing actually happening that we should actually be scared of. Like, some troll on the internet is like over here poking at you saying, well, blah, 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 this. Like, do you know how many hate mails? Like, I get hate mail. I get comments on my stuff because I run an ad. Even though in the ad I say, hey, this is free and I am going to talk about how we can work together if you want to work together, but there's no pressure. Like, I say it out loud and people are like, oh my gosh, and it just goes and it goes and it goes. And so the thing I always tell clients is to just know that you will be judged, be okay with it. And I believe we're called to something higher. I believe we're supposed to do something more. One of the best things that I ever heard was this idea that like the hardest thing we do every day is really just be okay with being ourselves.
Yeah.
And most problems that we have are people problems. Like when I go to the grocery store, it's a relational problem. If I have a problem being there, it's not because I'm afraid of getting groceries. It's because I'm afraid of who I'll run into or what someone's going to say to me. And is that a way that we should live our life? Like, I don't really think so. That's just kind of how I feel about it. Now, to that point, there might be things that you're like, no, I don't want to talk about this because this goes against like a value of mine or, that kind of thing. And that I totally back up. It's like, you have to discover what is the true fear here. Is it because you're like, no, I don't want to do this. This isn't me. Or is it because I'm worried about what someone will think? Now, if it's, I don't want to do this. This isn't me. I always say, draw the boundaries first. Before you say anything, before you put anything out there, start with what am I not going to say? And it makes it a lot easier. Most of us just feel like because I'm giving you some advice, you have to take all of it and run or assume these things. And I'm like, no, just start with your boundary. You set the boundaries however you want them. And then we can work within those confines a lot easier, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people like my students, especially, it's hard enough to get them to post online themselves, like them just be in a photo even. And so the idea of coming on here and it's like I can hear them in the background. They're like, oh no, I am not saying what I think on there. I'm not opening myself up to ridicule on there. But I actually, just to bring this up. So as you're talking, the thing that I'm thinking about is, so I create a lot of murals, right? But I love creating canvas art too, which is more of what this is about, I think, like selling your art that you create. Yeah. I pretty much just do commissions for businesses. But recently I had like an idea to do a canvas series. And I was thinking, like I've never had a real deep, reasoning to do a canvas series before. I was like, oh yeah, this just looks pretty or whatever. And recently we actually lost a baby at about 4 months. And so I was going to create like a series. It's like been bugging me in the back of my head. I just want to create a series like kind of around that with like cute little animals on clouds and like things like that. And I was like, but in the back of my head, I'm like, opening up about the why behind that on social media sounds so daunting. And the idea that I'm going to be using this why as a marketing, this is like going to be part of the marketing behind it. And I was like, that just feels weird. And it's just like, so anyway, I share that just to be like, give an example of, and maybe for people listening of like sharing, your thing, like whether it's hard or whatever it is, it's like, it's definitely weird. Even to me, I've been on social media for a long time and So I guess,
Well,
what are
yeah.
your
Would you
thoughts
be
on
willing to
that?
talk through that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think just maybe hearing you process it and me kind of talk through it the way that I talk to clients about it might give more insight into what I'm saying. Because like I said, it's like sometimes it's really challenging because I'm not a guy who's like A, B, and C equals D, right? Because A and B likely have to start with you. You're the artist. I don't get to say what you say or don't say or what like, so we have to start there. So if we think about this, first of all, I'm like really sorry that you dealt with this. My wife and I dealt with this last year,
Really?
and it's
Oh, wow.
terribly challenging. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think we were quite as far along. Just had another friend that's dealing with this right now where it's like they're at 33 and a half weeks. They literally just lost like the baby. So sad,
Oh,
like super sad.
ugh.
So I get when there's like this emotion attached to it, right? And then you go, okay, well, now I'm attaching marketing to this thing, right?
Yeah.
But I would ask you first, what would you hope that someone would get aside from even like, let's just take marketing out of it, right? Because marketing is this term that artists have wrapped a story around, right? That says, oh, I've attached money to this. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Let's call it that. That's fine. But let's put that away for a second and pretend that all we're trying to do is get this mural into the world. Why would you want, or this series into the world? Why would you want to do that? What do you hope someone gets from it?
Actually, as you were talking, saying that you guys had experienced the same thing and you had a friend, like I have a friend right now who just experienced the same thing. Like ours was a couple months ago, but it's like, it's so common. And I
Yeah.
think one thing, first off, is just I have this idea in my head. I really want to get it out. I have a reason for creating, and I think it could be really beautiful. And then another part is
Mhm.
like, I think a lot of people like just don't talk about it, as I understand. And it could be something that people relate to. But I think the part that I'm having a hard time with in my head is like, I know by putting this out there, people are going to relate to it. And then, yeah, the money part of it just feels a little weird because I'm like almost playing on their emotion for them to buy this. And I'm like, oh, that just feels weird. So, but you're saying put that aside and just do what you want.
Well, yeah, because the truth is I'm not saying do what you want. Like we can go deeper into this, but put it aside for now because what you're doing is immediately you have this desire to make this thing and you're shutting it off before you even do it.
Yeah.
Right. To me, that's more dangerous than anything else because you're like, well, I have this idea. I think it could impact people, but now as soon as there's money involved and all this stuff, I got to shut it down. So it's like, well, now you're robbing yourself of it first because you have two choices. You could just make it for you. And I'm a big proponent of that. If you want to just make something for you, beautiful, right? That's so cool. And then the other side to that is like, if you want people to have something, let's just call it what it is, right? If I have something like this, what did my wife do? My wife went and she bought a ring with a certain stone. And then it was like she had I forget exactly what it was, but it was essentially like something in it that was like supposed to be living, like inside the stone of the ring, which was really beautiful, right? And it was a symbol of this thing that we went through. And would I see that money being exchanged for that thing as bad? No. Like I see that as a story that someone has lived, right? And they want a way that they can reconnect to that story in a healthy way. And I think that's beautiful, right? I just don't see marketing and money the same way that I think a lot of artists have been taught to see it. I see money as an exchange of energy. It's literally, if I pay you, Andrea, for something, I'm saying thank you, right? Like that's what it is. It's not that you're all of a sudden taking from me because the world lives in give and take. That is a universal law for everything that, we live and we die and we breathe in and we breathe out. It's like money comes in, money comes out. Like that's the way it all works. And so that's been my really helpful way to see that, yes, if you came in and you were trying to be manipulative, but that's not your intent. Your intent is to say, I want to serve somebody with this idea. And here's the story that I lived. If you see value in it, here's an opportunity for you to buy it. If you don't, no problem. You see what I mean? Like I'm just trying to break down these barriers of what I think a lot of artists have been put in. honestly, it's a lot of programming that I think is bullshit, if I'm being real.
That's so true. As you're talking, like, I feel like it's so much clearer whenever it's not you, right? And you're like, because
Right.
you have all these feelings. So that's why it's so great to have a coach or even a friend or somebody, just really somebody who knows a little bit about what they're talking about, rather than just a friend who like just has an opinion, right? But so it's good to talk to somebody like you who like, because as you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, no, artists have literally come to me and you're like, hey, I want to create murals. I really want to do this. But, and then it's like all this, they're like, but then I have to like create a website and I'm not really very techie and blah, blah, and I'm like, whoa, wait, like, let's do that later. Like, let's just do step one now. And so you're right. Okay. I'm glad that we went over this because I was like, I just need to create the paintings and then see what happens.
Yeah. Create the paintings, tell the story, and then you can make a decision. It's not an all or nothing situation, just like you said. And this is where I think most creatives, I say it this way, I am a creative problem solver. If I don't have a problem, I will create one just so I can solve it. And it sounds like that is very much like both of our clients, like the people that we deal with, and so I try to be empathetic to that while also being aware that most things in life, especially when it comes to art and even like fashion or things like that are more story and status and that kind of stuff, we don't see it the same way, and that's beautiful. I think it's actually really cool from a perspective of a buyer,
Yeah. Okay. So say we continue with this, and what do you think is the best way? Now that we know the why and why we should, and to get our fears out of the way, what do you think the best way, like even just writing about it in a caption or creating a face to camera video, or like what's your, like, that you see artists do successfully?
So there is two sides to this. One is the like trend side. So this is what's working right now. So we can talk a little bit about that. Obviously video works really well right now, but I'm also a big believer that more raw video works really well right now. It's like, you don't need these heavy edits. You just need to be you. So the other thing is that storytelling is a big deal. So being able to create and put together a story that makes sense, because a lot of people tell stories in the sense of, well, I did this and then I did that and then I did this and then I did that. And there's no real story there, right? A story is as simple as a character has a want and then they have a problem that gets in the way, and then they're transformed as they solve the problem. So for you, great little story right now in terms of like what you're even going through would be as simple as like, I've gone through this really challenging thing and I want to consider putting it out into the world. But the problem is like, there's a lot that's coming up emotionally. I'm still maybe kind of in the emotion of this event that happened in my life. And so I'm not sure what I could do, but I am seeing that it could be valuable to others. That's a story because there's a problem that you're dealing with and how you're sort of being transformed from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those two things are really the most powerful in my book. If you're going to start like putting videos online, I would start by just being raw in your office, in your studio, in whatever it is, and just telling a little story about where you're at, talking about things that you value, talking about things that you feel that you're going through as a human being. I'm always a big proponent of putting the art at the end. Most people want to put the art first. And so for you, it would be like, you might start the story with, I'd love to create a whole art series on this story. I would reverse it. I would say, I'm going through this story right now, and this is what's happening, because that's a human element. So many more people can relate to the human element versus the art element. When you just start with the art element, what do? We reach more artists that way. Make sense? Because the art people go, oh yeah, I want to create a piece around this thing too, right? So if we start with the human element of going through this story, and then we end with, that's why I do this as an artist, that's why I'm thinking about making this into a piece, it's a lot easier to walk more people through that process.
Okay, I gotcha. I don't think I'm going to do that video that you suggested at this point.
No, but it's an easy example because we're right here. Yeah.
I think the first part for me would just be creating the art and then maybe making a video of it. But it's good to start with in the caption, or even like in the video in the captions that you read, as in, I created this because this, or we did this. And I
wouldn't even say I created this because. I would just start with the story, right?
Okay.
So what's something that you've made recently that you're like talking about?
I mostly just paint murals for businesses. So it's really not like I just finished a mural for Branson, this big one. I started off my caption with, I'm really glad to be done with this because of all the brick that was really tough to get into. But so I think it's a little different in that way, but.
Oh, but it's not. Yeah, it's not different at all. Because if you think about it, what is Branson to me? Branson is a place where, a certain kind of person goes to, right? It's like you got all these theaters in Branson, you got all these different things. Like if you're wanting to open this up to more potential people, which is what we're talking about, how do we get more eyeballs, right? Well, then we say, okay, Branson is this place that if you haven't ever experienced it before, it has this, that, Jim Stafford Theater, the whatever, blah, 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 country music galore. It's basically built for a lot of blue hairs. And then we got this like crazy, interesting town. And that alone is going to go, oh, well, that's weird. I've never heard of this place, or I've heard of this place and I want to go. Now you've got my attention either way. Then you lead that into, I was, lucky enough to be welcomed into this town to paint a mural. Now I'm like, oh, interesting. Now I'm interested in you, but you've taken this thing that is either known or unknown, has historical ideas, story behind it, and you've brought your story into that thing.
Okay. It's a lot easier to do this when somebody
else make sense?
Is looking at it from the outside. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's why I built a whole program around it. But yes.
Yeah, if you could just follow me around and like weekly be like, hey, do this, and which is probably what you do with your students. Okay, so I had a couple.
Well, we're so close to it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is. We are so close to it, and it's just. I mean, like, what am I thinking at the end of painting a mural? I'm like, I'm exhausted. I'm like, I am done. I'm ready to move on to the next one. And so, like, backing up and be like, okay, wait, why did they want this completed in the first place? It's to showcase everything that Branson is. And so just to explain that, which is actually really great for SEO because Instagram is Googleable now. And so I've been trying to put the location on all of my captions recently. Okay, let's flip the script of so you had one that recently that was like, why do customers buy? So talking about like the buying habits of customers. So we've talked about a little bit about like why artists should do it. So maybe the buying habits of on the other foot.
Yeah. So I always liked Seth Godin's quote where he says, people don't buy things, they buy feelings, right? And that's not a new idea, but the metaphor that's used here is that if someone goes to a hardware store to buy a 1/4-inch drill bit to drill a hole, they're not actually buying the drill bit, they're buying the hole. And they're not actually buying the hole, they're buying the shelf that they're building. And they're not actually buying the shelf they're building. They're buying the feeling that they get when all their stuff is off the floor and their significant other comes in and gives them a kiss on the cheek and says, thank you, right? They're buying pride and accomplishment. And so when I think about art is usually under two categories. It's usually either a commodity. So we have things like Target kind of art, or, you go into some big box store and it's just to like put on the bathroom wall. And unfortunately, I see a lot of artists treat their art as commoditized art, and it really breaks my heart, right? But that's art without a story. There's no real reason behind it except decorative expression. So the other side of that is it's more of a luxury item, and luxury items sell based on the feeling. And so you have to ask, like, well, what are the feelings that you're trying to offer somebody? And another example that I use in terms of specifically art, if let's say you and your significant other are off in Denver, or maybe even Breckenridge or something, you're like in a little ski town and you go into a little shop and there's some art from a local artist there. Are you actually buying that art if you buy the local artist's art? Probably not. You're probably buying the story of you and your husband being there hanging out, and like you're buying the story that you're living in that moment. And this thing is a reminder of that story. And so what I always try to get people, like our clients, to do is say, what is the story that I want people to attach to this work? And how do we tell that story? And how do we do that more often? So it's the same as just what we talked about with the Branson thing, right? If you knew that you wanted people to attach to the story of Branson, then we start there and we say, that's the mission. The mission is that we want to get people to really buy into what Branson is all about. And then we push them down that line. We can talk about Branson as just a town. We can talk about the residents in the city. We can talk about every individual theater. And we don't even get to the art for a while, but we build this story to where by the time they see the art, they're like, oh yeah, I'm bought in because I know all of this information. I have so much more context to the work itself.
Yeah, I feel like it gives people, especially when like you have the art in your home and somebody comments on it, you can tell the story behind it. You can say, oh, well, this artist is interesting in this way, and she did this and that, and so this is why she created that. And I think it's just a conversation starter as well. I have a couple things in the house that I bought in different places of the world, just like you're saying. And it's so cool just for me to look at that and remember, oh, that was from Africa, or that was from Hawaii, or that was from all the different things. And so, okay. So what I'm getting from you is get your story. What story do you want, story or feeling you want to have attached to the thing that you're creating, and share it.
Yeah. I have a whole process around that, but it's don't overthink it. That's the other part of the process, is stop overthinking it and just start sharing and see what resonates with people. Because that's the secret hack to marketing anything, is to just make a lot of different versions of something. I'm sure you've seen this in your professional career, that something starts to click and you're like, I don't even know why that worked. So you're able to make more of that, and then that helps get the word out more. But you just had to go start making stuff first.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I need to think of this after, or even like before I start painting, because right after, especially after you finish a mural, man, I'm just so tired. I'm ready to be, like, somebody asked me about the Branson mural the other day. They're like, hey, I saw you just finished this thing, and I was like, yeah, it was really windy, it was really hard to paint that. And they were like that's like almost not what they want to hear. They're like, no, like say, like talk about the I was like, oh, just kidding, never mind. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's like finding that thing that you're attaching to maybe even before, and journaling on that. Yeah. We do a lot of journaling in our community. We do a lot of like really trying to connect to that deeper story in the way that you connect. Because if you're not connected to it, it's probably not going to matter anyway. I want you to have fun doing this. It shouldn't be something that's a slog. That sucks.
Okay, so journaling, writing things down, maybe writing down like the bigger picture and working inwards. Is that how we do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, because you can have, if you have the main story, so in your example of what is Branson, then you can look, it's kind of like how I just went down the list. It's like, well, what are all the little stories within that? And you could have individual people stories. You could have the stories of businesses. You could have the story. So let's say that my wife, for instance, she used to do a lot of art for moms that were going through postpartum depression. And because that was something she went through, and it was a very important thing for her. So her message or her mission was, I want to remind moms that despite, their imperfections, they're still a good mom. And so all of her work revolved around that idea. And so there would be these different stories of like a mom that was maybe having to cry it out, let their kiddo cry it out. And that was really tough. Or a mom that, she'd have funny ones that like the mom is like sitting on the toilet and the kid like comes to like ask dad where something is, and dad says, go ask your mom. And like, the kid is like going through all the things just to always end up like with the mom, like on the toilet, just, there's so many little stories that are the human element. And I think that's where a lot of artists get tripped up, is they're just missing the human part. They're so locked into what they've been taught in school, which is all about form and structure and the tools and the color and all that. And it's like, most people don't think about things that way. They think in stories. They think in moments.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So I love to take a bunch of snapshots of the different angles of painting, and throughout the mural process, I'll take like some, and it's really not that extensive, but in the end, it looks like it's a lot. But it's like for the first day that I'm there, I'll take like 3 different videos. And then the second day I'll take like 2, and then I'll maybe take 1, and then I'll take a finishing one. And then by the end of it, even though I spent like 20 minutes on it, you put it together and it looks like a full thing. But I think to add to that, I have been wanting lately to add text over the screen, because it just gets way better views. And but all the time I'm like, what do I talk about? And so this is helping me figure out what to talk about. And in the terms of Branson, I'm thinking, oh yeah, no, like I think a lot of people down on Branson sometimes when they live around here, but people from out of town love it. And I actually really love it. I love that we have this in our backyard and that we get to go to Solar City, which is a popular attraction. And like, so I'm like, I'm going to start it off with that. So I have another one in my edits folder, and I'm just going to say, I love that we have Branson in the back, basically in our backyard kind of to go with now that we have a kid. And it's like, yeah. Okay. Great. Good talk. Thank you for helping me with my video this week.
Yeah. And I'll say this as another hack that I give a lot of my clients is like, you have this cool footage of you doing this mural. You can play with that. Like you could put actual footage from Branson. You can obviously cite the source, or maybe you took some footage or whatever. So you can alternate between that and your mural. So you're getting a little bit of like both worlds. You can have one that's just the thing, but I'm always a big proponent of reuse, especially if you're using B-roll or something, which if you don't know what B-roll is as you're listening, that's just like footage that doesn't have you speaking directly to the camera. It's just making a mural, making your art. So alternating between the real life thing and the making of your art helps kind of keep them seeing you as the artist while also connecting to the human element.
Okay. Love it. I love your name, by the way, on Instagram, Stop the Starving Artist. Yeah, that was one of the reasons that I got into coaching in a way. Like I was like, we need to stop the starving artist mentality that I hear so much. And so, yeah, I just love it. But
well, can I ask you, Andrea, what you think is the biggest reason that artists have that? Like when you see the thing that kind of frustrates you the most about the starving artist mentality, what do you think artists are doing that keeps them stuck that they may not even realize they're doing?
So I think a lot of it for me in the beginning was I never really saw an example or many of artists that were succeeding. And I also didn't know how they were doing that. I was like, maybe they were born into it, or maybe they had a gallery connection or something. So I just didn't think it was attainable for me at first. And then I kind of like fell into it in certain ways. And so that's really why I started the podcast, was I want to tell all of these stories of all these artists and all the different ways that they got into art, and that you can get some takeaway from it to learn from them or even see yourself within them. But I think a lot of it's just in the mind of like not thinking that it's possible for that person because you're like, well, for me, it was because I'm in a small town in Missouri. I was like, no way, there couldn't be like, that was like the story I was telling myself. And so I think everybody has like a story that they're clung on to of why they can't do it. And everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah, that's how I feel too, I think. And we attach stories to everything. We attach, just like we talked about with marketing or money, or, we got a story based around everything. And that story exists because it helped you in some place in your life. It kept you safe. And I think in our life, we have to learn to be able to recognize those stories and let them go. But if we can't recognize them and they're just running in the background in our subconscious, and that's so dangerous, So I'm trying to bring more awareness to that in 2026, is like all those programming and stories that we live with that we don't realize are there, that are keeping us stuck as creatives, because creatives are usually the ones in the movies that are like, make look like idiots, and who's the ones that are making all the money? Those people are usually the supervillains. It's like such an interesting thing, the way creatives and like money and all this stuff is portrayed. And so to me, I'm 100% with you on that. I think it's a big, big deal, the mindset side.
How did you get into this? What were some of the blocks that you had? How did you get through whatever you had to go through in order for now to create? Like you do a lot of face to camera videos online and like you show up very confidently. What were you like in the beginning?
I mean, if you watch my first video, which ironically got like close to 200,000 views, I think. And if you remember, did you ever know of Lil Nas X? Did you ever hear that artist? He's huge. But he did like Old Town Road, which was like a huge like hip hop country. He was the first one to like bring country and hip hop sort of together. Okay. He commented on that video. It like kind of, went viral for me. This is on YouTube, and I'm so monotone and I'm so like, I'm talking like this, and I'm very like afraid to just be on the camera. And it's so annoying to watch, but it still exists on YouTube. But my story is a little weird because I started as a musician. And so I was a touring drummer for 10 years, was very fortunate to play all these major festivals, have my music on music and playing and songwriting, all these different elements on like television and movies and stuff like that. And what was so weird for me is that I went out of that. We had our first kiddo, and immediately I went to Europe, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I have to be with my kids. Like if I'm going to have a family, I have to do this. And so I left and immediately started working for this company while I was doing like music production, where I helped people grow their YouTube channel. And the reason I did this is this guy named Tim Schmoyer, who ran a company called Video Creators. And he was one of the people that helped YouTube write their curriculum on how they taught their own platform. So he was very tied in with YouTube directly. We had clients like Ali Abdaal, Dr. Mike, like a lot of these bigger YouTuber names, and it was such an interesting world where I learned how to tell stories for people versus like, what does it mean for me? And I started to connect all these dots with like, oh, this is why it worked in the band. And this is why it worked when we were marketing things. And I didn't know why. It was just kind of working. And then I saw me working that with our clients. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I just kept thinking, I want to do this for artists. I want to do this for artists. So I started doing it for musicians first. And my wife being an illustrator and us having a lot of like visual artist friends, they were like, Lennon, this stuff is really valuable for me too. I think you need to open this up more. And I was really afraid because I'm like, I'm not a visual artist, so I had a lot of imposter syndrome there. And so they just really encouraged me. And so I used my wife as a guinea pig, and she was able to get hired by Netflix Family, written up in like Board Panda and HuffPost and all this stuff, have her stuff go like super viral. And it was just because we put this like message together. What's the mission that she was on, and I used all this stuff I was learning with the YouTubers. And I tried to say, instead of saying, how do we get views? I said, how do we first start with getting the person so tied into what they're passionate about? Because what I would see in YouTube is these people would get something that got them views, and then it would get them views and they'd be pissed because they're like, well, now I'm known as this. And that's not what I want to be known for. And I'm like, well, why'd you do it? Well, I wanted to get views. Okay. Right. But now like you've built this thing. So I always said, I'm going to lead heart first, heart first. What does the person want to say? How can they say that over and over and love it? And so that's why I'm so like driven to help artists dig deep first before we think about views. It's like, you got to think about what you actually want to say to the world, how you want to say it. Then we talk about the other side. And so I took that to a few other artists and got a lot of success with that. And now even this year, we're going to see close to $500,000 in art sales from our community. And it's just like a really beautiful, cool thing. It just continues to grow year by year, but I'm only on this year will be year 4 of doing it alone. Like, so it's still relatively new, but I'm going big. I want next year, see our people make $1 million and then just freaking keep crushing it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. So I saw one post recently how you said you can sell your art without going viral, because a lot of people are chasing those views, but you focus on more the selling of it. But like, explain that a little bit. Yeah,
well, you obviously need people in your world, right? So what I find is that if you're focusing on virality, you're really focusing on the wrong thing. You're not focusing on connection. Because what do we see that goes viral? It's like really cute kitten videos, somebody like doing some crazy antic, we do see things that are very authentic that go viral, but those, like, that's what I would love to see from my clients. And I see that with certain clients. Like, we have one set of clients who is a couple. They're called Hannah and Nemo, and they make these really beautiful moving mosaics. And now the things they talk about are like slow living and upcycling materials, what it looks like to upcycle. And then they also talk about their art. So those are kind of their 3 buckets that they're thinking about, but they're never thinking about going viral. They're thinking about what's going to get someone to connect with me and how can I connect deeper with my people, right? And the more they do that, the more they sell. Now of course, their socials grow as a byproduct, but I always find that when you focus on connection, you will grow. It's like inevitable, but when people focus on big numbers, they get trapped in this place that is a lot more mentally stressful. I think a lot more dangerous for our mental health. I'd rather start with the connection first, because you're doing something that you actually enjoy. I want people doing this for a long time,
Yeah, for sure. I think the main thing is when I was looking at your Instagram and just looking at your videos and all the things, and I saw a video, we kind of touched on this when I first got on the call with you, of getting artists to act and not just, overthink. So maybe we'll end on this subject of your best advice on how to do all the things that you suggest in here and all the whys and all the storytelling and all the things, but just like how to get people to, once they listen to this, take action, because that is the thing that's going to make the difference.
Yeah. So I recently ran a study and I got about 100 artists answering a survey. And then I ran that data. And what I saw is that most artists are really confident in their work. They're confident in their value. If we put it on a scale of 1 to 10, a lot of them are at like 8, 9, 10. Like they feel really good about it. But then when we asked, well, how much action are you taking based on that confidence? It was like a 1, 2, and a 3. And so the question we have to ask then is why? Why aren't you taking, if you are confident, why aren't you taking action? And I think that really this may be a little stingy, but I think there's like a lie that we're telling ourselves. I think we are confident in our own world. If we stay isolated in our studios, if we stay isolated in our bedroom, if we do whatever, right? It's easier to be confident. And I think the reason we don't take action is because that puts that confidence at risk. And so what I want every artist to understand, and if I could yell this from the top of every mountain, is that your art does not make you more or less of a valuable human being. Your art does not make you more or less of a valuable human being. You are value and worthy of love, worthy of being loved, worthy of loving others just because you exist. And when we attach our internal worth to our external creation, we are living a very, very dangerous situation because we are going to cause ourselves a lot of pain. And so you want to talk about being able to let go of things and feel more confident in yourself. It starts there. So taking action is really about what's the one small step. And I say this to all my people too. It's like, I don't want you to think about doing it right. I just want you to think about doing it. You listen to all the shit that I talked about today. You may look at it and go, where do I start? What's the fun one? What's the one you'd have the most fun doing? Go start there. Because if you're just sitting here milling it over because you're so worried about, well, if I do it wrong, I'm just going to waste my time. That's like saying, well, I really, really want to learn to ride a bicycle, but I'm not going to do it until I know all the steps perfectly. Now, the beautiful thing about a bicycle analogy, and we all know this, those of us that ride a bicycle, is that you don't first learn to hold your handlebars straight and keep your eyes up. If that's our steps, and then we pedal, like we can't do those. You have to do all those together, and you have to go and you take action together with those things, and you get like your grounds as you go. So action is all about understanding that you're just got to do the thing that feels fun, and you got to stop putting all these expectations behind something that if you're wrong, it's going to be bad, it's like you're just here to learn. You're just here to grow as a human being. And I think, honestly, making your own business as an artist is one of the best ways to grow because you are forced to be like, you're the only one in the way now. There's no one else, and we try to put an algorithm in the way. We try to say, well, I don't have a good enough teacher. We try to say all these things. It's like, no, you're the one that has to do the action. So if I'm going to give one simple action, I would say just show up, put yourself out there and say something that's you. Like, stop worrying so much about the art in terms of like selling it and just start by being yourself. Like, can you show up and just tell a little story? Can you show up and just talk about your kids? Can you just show up and show your puppy? I have a freaking chameleon here that I'm trying to show more of. It's like, just learn to be more you and people will be attracted to that.
Yeah, I saw your video with the chameleon on your head, and I was like, it actually took me a second to be like, wait, what is that on your head? I loved it, but that's a great example.
I know, she's the best.
Okay, so if people are too shy to do face to camera, because I have a couple students who are, I just know would be like, there is no way. Maybe even do a voiceover. Maybe even
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, do a voiceover, take footage of yourself so we see your face, and then do text. Just let us see you, like anything where we can learn to start to do that. I'm also a big proponent of like every day, do a little video face to camera just for you, like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And then once you're done, delete it. Don't keep it. Just delete it. It's just getting in the habit of being able to speak to a little lens, and learning to think about your people versus a little lens, and that is a skill that anybody can do. It's not limited to the extroverts. A lot of our best and favorite creatives and content creators are very much introverts.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're built that way. Like just being able to stay inside of a studio all day and paint and look at a canvas, and like that's a very introverted thing. Like I think it's more of like a superpower that we have to just put on an extroverted mask for a little bit in order to market ourselves or just share our story. We're not even going to say the word marketing anymore, even though this is like a business marketing podcast. But I guess just thinking of it as just sharing your art.
Yeah, just sharing yourself, sharing your art, because the big thing is if you have a word that you attach a story to something, change that word and change the story. So if marketing isn't good for you, then just call it serving. So a lot of times I'll do that with clients. Like, how are you showing up to serve somebody today? Start there.
Yeah. How are you sharing what you create with the world? How are you sharing your talents? Okay. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. And I will continue to follow all of your videos on Instagram, especially but you're also on YouTube. Are you a bigger YouTuber than you are Instagrammer, or?
I think I have more followers on Instagram right now, but I'm going to go hard on YouTube this year. That's like, I think I'm at like 10K or something on YouTube. So nothing huge, but it's continuing to grow, and I love YouTube. I think it's so fun. So I like doing long form stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Congrats on YouTube. I feel like YouTube is kind of tough for me to grow on it, but I keep trying. I keep uploading things, but Instagram is the home. But I will continue to follow you on Instagram. Definitely. I love your unique videos. And if anybody's listening who you need just an example of what to do, go over and check out Lennon's Instagram. You can see his face to camera videos and his chameleon that sits atop of his head while he does it and all the fun things. I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to place like a paintbrush or a paint like tube on my head and then just start talking. And then why not? Like on
do you do you know Josie Lewis?
I follow her, yeah, but I've never interviewed her yet.
So she's she's a friend of mine, and she does that where she'll talk into a paintbrush, and I always thought that was so funny, like such a great little like hook to get people in. So
love it. Yeah, anything for a hook. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much. Follow Lennon on all the things. We'll have all your links here, but yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Andrea. I appreciate you letting me be here.